Steve, it's a beautiful weather up here. In fact, it's more than beautiful. It's hot. So hot that at night you can't breathe. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, hot. I've got the windows all closed so I don't hear people outside and record, and it's like being in an oven.
Yeah, it's pretty warm in here, I must say. I am going to be perspiring profusely, I feel, as the recording goes on. It's a good job it's not videoed. Yes. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, you could get air conditioning, but do you deserve it, Steve?
Well, while I feel I have a sense of entitlement towards it, I'm not sure that I do deserve it. I think I'm probably far more of a stoic in these things than I...
You do look like a stoic philosopher, I've got to say. Put you in a barrel and you would just look the part. So you think you deserve something, do you? You got this sense of entitlement.
The sense of entitlement. Yeah, of course I have. Everyone has, haven't they, these days? It's an epidemic. It's a pandemic of entitlement.
Well, interesting that you should say that. Why don't we talk about the entitlement of people? What do you think?
Yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. Let's see how many other people we can annoy.
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound, that's what I say. First of all, what do we mean by entitlement of people?
Yeah, I guess that an individual thinks that they have a right to something, or the amount to which somebody thinks that they have a right to. Or that they inherently deserve special treatment or special privileges. And I guess that's probably sort of encapsulated in today's sort of thinking as you owe me, you owe me this, I deserve it, And you hear this trotted out all the time, don't you? You deserve to be happy. You deserve to have this. You deserve... And I listen to this and I think to myself, as I'm listening to those words, I think, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't deserve anything. You don't deserve that. But anyway, So that's how I would sort of define entitlement in general, as a concept, as a definition. What about you? Do you see it differently to that?
Very similar. Obviously, they think they deserve some privileges or recognition, but for stuff that's not earned. Now, I have an example from about 10, 15 years ago. At a school, I organised a medieval fair for the whole afternoon. It was about 6 hours. It was actually turned out to be a fantastic event. Now, I was working in a department that was dealing with enterprise and business studies, and it was based on getting students to run stalls, and then departments got involved, and we had horse carriage rides on the sports fields. We had tents. There was about 12 of them. One where they dressed up, excuse me, and did it like a medieval medicine thing and all that kind of stuff. It was absolutely brilliant. We did in the round dancing. Of course, the history department, although they didn't get involved, I invited a guy to come along with the principal, and they dressed up in medieval costume. It was really good. Got some very good photographs. About a week later, we'd had a meeting, and I was sat next to the guy concerned. And a woman came up and said to him, "Oh, you did really well. It was a fantastic event. I'm really impressed." And he knew I was sat next to him. Didn't say a word. He hadn't done a bloody thing. And I just kept quiet. And it ate away at me for some time. The bold face ability to take praise for something you've not done ever. This guy was so thick-skinned and emotionally blind. He took that praise for the event, even though he'd done nothing. And that, to me, was an early example of what has become all too common with most people now. This sense of entitlement and this self-willed belief that they've done something when they never have. So you may have similar examples.
Oh, yeah, certainly similar experiences. And you're right, and I think it's very much across the board. I can recall a number of people over the years who would task you to do a certain job. You would do all of the work, present all of the report, compile it all into an email, send it back to the boss. The boss would then take that, put it into the email, send it to his boss with his name on it, with his sign off on it, and it's like, hang about a minute, that's not from you, that was from me, and I've done all the work, and you're the one that gets the credit. How does that work then? That's not the way it should be. I mean, what I used to try and do then with my team was I would always attach the report to my email. I'd go back to the boss with the report that they had done, and I would CC them into it, and I would put in the email, hi so and so, great report done by this analyst. See it attached. Huge kudos to the work they've done, etc., etc. So I would try and big them up rather than big me up. So this sense of getting given something for nothing, it does not resonate with me very well at all. I think you've been earn it, right? You earn it. Don't like it. It's a narcissistic thing, isn't it?
Yes, I've got a note down here that it's very much linked to narcissism. We could also talk about the possible origins of that as well. Before we do that, do you mind if I just give another example? Because the examples we've given, somebody out there may not have come across something similar. But if you want to look at people who are prepared to take the kudos for stuff they've never done, just go to YouTube and look at the reactors. The people that would sit there and they won't even emotionally get engaged or even move their face muscles. They'll sit there, they'll nod, they'll pretend they're listening to the music. Oh, that was good. And then they'll just take the kudos from the comments. Oh, great reaction. Oh, I was looking forward to you to doing this reaction. And zero effort to recognise the musicians, because it's nearly always music, or who made the films or whatever. It's bizarre. This like sense of I'm a star because I've got 10,000 subscribers, but I'm just sitting in the chair doing nothing. That's the problem, and it's all too common. And they're now considered to be the modern rock stars.
It's funny, isn't it?
Well, it's not. That's the problem. It's sad.
Yeah. But I guess it is sad. I mean, I sit here and I just sort of slowly put my head in my hands and shake my head and rock backwards and forwards in my rocking chair with my pipe and slippers. But it's just it's a reflection, isn't it, on people. This is what people want. It's like, oh, come on, give me something a little bit more juicy, you know.
So what causes it then? Where's this all coming from? Childhood?
Yeah, well, if it's sort of like which I believe it is, this narcissistic personality trait, this sense of entitlement, then it's something that will be formed, won't it, in childhood? You know, the environment, the way that you grew up. What was that environment looking like when you grew up there? Whether or not you were responsible for solving things, or whether things were solved for you. You know, this is why I really like the Socratic way of teaching.
Yes.
You know, where you ask lots of questions in order to bring the person to the answer. You might know the answer, but if I just tell you the answer, it's my answer that you're now parroting. But if I ask you questions which bring you to that answer, it's now your answer which you've worked your way through. And I like that in terms of the sort of Socratic method of doing things. And so, yeah, whether it links down to that people just solve all your problems, whether it's parenting, I'm sure that there's parenting must come into it somewhere, and probably your reaction with the state, with authority people. How have you got on with people that are in positions of authority? How has that factored into your way of thinking? I'd have thought.
Yeah, I put down it's a childhood thing. So a lot of children now are given things with no sense of having to wait for anything. And I've been in shops leading up to the last Christmas tide where there are kids who, I want this, I want this, I want this. I get it when they come into the shop I work. I work in a shop where there's certain food items on offer to do with chocolate. And the kids will not wait. And I don't often hear the parents say, no, wait. It's, oh, yeah, okay, let's get this now. And they're breaking off the items because they're grabbing. They're looking with their fingers rather than their eyes, that kind of stuff. And then it's like when I was at school, it was just coming in, probably when you were as well, where there were school events. You got an award just for taking part. And excuse me, and I understand why that would be, because there will be some children that will never win. They may have some physical infirmity. You know, they've taken part. They deserve to be recognised. But if you're doing that for everybody because they can't be bothered, then no one will be bothered because they're just going to get recognition and praise regardless. And that just leads to that, as you said, sense of narcissism.
Yeah, and I've got a real problem, I think, with being awarded just for your participation in something, because that isn't life. And what we should be training our young people in is, when you get out into the real world, there are winners and there are losers. There are people that really do very well, and there are people that drop by the wayside. Now, not everybody is going to be an achiever, and I don't mean that. And there's degrees of achievement as well, isn't there? Not all of us are going to be like some of the people that I've worked with, who are just so qualified that they'd make you sick, you know. But not everybody's going to be like that. I'm certainly not like that, and never will be like that. But you've got to recognise that unless you put some hard yards into life, you don't deserve to get anything out of it. That's my view. But I'm a dinosaur these days, aren't I?
You are, because the generation that we were informed by, brought up with, had come through some quite difficult times in the 50s, and certainly those going back to the 40s, and their parents, you know, the Great Depression and the 30s and then the war. It meant that you had to work hard for it, and you only got recognition if you achieved some kind of, well, militaristic event, or you had done something to benefit a nation. Otherwise, it was quite low-level stuff. And there is arguments as to why that could be good as well as bad, because it's forcing you to accept certain things and just put up with things. I was reading Churchill, and the fact that when he was outed out of power just after the war, he, towards the late 40s, early 50s, questioned the government as to why now there's more items that are restricted on rationing than there was during the war. He said there's no need. We have free seas, and in Britain it lasted until 1953, I think it was. Well, that's 8 years after the war finished. That's twice the length of that war almost. So people put up with it. They never questioned. So in a way, that childhood, that upbringing was good for us. It taught you that it was down to your effort. But sometimes it went a bit too far.
You're right, but everything's about moderation, right? So
Yeah.
it seems to me like the pendulum now has swung way too far, that everybody is entitled to everything. Well, no, you're not. You're just not. It's just not the way it works. So
I think another reason why it's happened, you can almost, certainly in the UK, this will be different in other countries, but in the UK it was the late 80s. We saw the rise of yuppiedom, and one of the most significant movers in the culture at that time was, what was his name? He was in the streets of San Francisco. He married Zeta Jones. Michael Douglas. He played Gecko, didn't he? He said, greed is good, the Wall Street. Yeah, greed is good. And then that just leads to narcissism, that you're going to be judged on your success, your money, and your power. And we saw that throughout the 90s, and how suddenly alpha males became toxic leaders. And it was a lack of care or understanding for others, because it's all about yourself. It's all grabbing it for yourself. Those people became parents, and they would have put that kind of ideas into their children. You mix then with the development of social media, where a lot of kids have just been brought up by the machine they have in their hand rather than their parents. And the parents, probably because of, I don't know, they're away from home, they're spending long hours at work, they're trying to make that portfolio work, they'll just give stuff to their kids to keep them quiet. And you've got this toxic brew that now those kids are grown up and they're on social media and they think the world owes them.
Yeah. But like I say, it really doesn't. It doesn't owe... the world owes you nothing. If you are born into this world and you were to have your family stripped away from you, that actually wrap around you to actually grow you up. If you were to be born into this world, you're born in with nothing. You are born in with absolutely nothing, and the only things that you can bring around you are things that you can work to bring around you. Now, people are born into families that are very wealthy. People are born into families that are very poor, and there is obviously a huge divide between the two. But there is the ability, I believe, in terms of humanity, there is ability in the vast majority of people to excel in lots of different areas if they were to turn their mind to it and to focus on certain things. So I've never excelled in anything. I've got a butterfly mind, and so I've got lots of things that I've dabbled in over the years, and I've done okay in them, but I've never like excelled in one thing because I've got too many interests. And with a butterfly mind, it becomes very difficult to excel in one thing. So that's never going to happen for me. But there are other people that, who, no matter where they've come from, if they work hard and given opportunities, and opportunities is a key factor here, they'll do very well. I've got no doubt about it. But the sense that just because you are born into a certain nation, born into a certain culture, born at a certain age, that you are now entitled to everything, that's just absolute nonsense. And it feeds into the self-serving people that we've already discussed before, that we lose that sense of community and it all becomes about me. Everything becomes about I, me and mine. And we lose touch with what's going on around us, because everything in this world, in this universe, has actually been set up to satisfy me and to serve all of my whims and desires and purposes. What a load of balls. It's not true, is it?
No, and it's created a set of very ungrateful people. They're not happy with what they've got. It's what they want, not what they need. And therefore, the imbalance is that what is they're told they must want. My mother-in-law, I was talking to her about this earlier, and she said where she sees this coming from is adverts that keep saying, because you deserve it. Buy this product because you deserve it. Well, you don't deserve it. No, you don't deserve it. And why do you think you deserve it? And more importantly, how's that going to make you happy because you think you've got this product? The whole world is generating this belief in people that I think Simon de Botton, which is a wonderful name, he's an Englishman. I think he had French parents. And he was very famous about 20 years ago doing philosophy. And he looked at the modern British sense of mind that were influenced by the colour Sunday brochures in the newspapers. That it was all envy, status envy. These people go on these holidays. Well, I'm not going on that holiday. Or these people have this house. Oh, I haven't got that kind of house. This car, I haven't got. You must strive for those things. And because a lot of people can never reach it, and because they're told that's what the only thing is going to make you have any worth, well, what's the outcome then? They have this sense of anger. But because they're told they deserve it, then it creates this anger within them. So they'll start belittling others. They'll seek attention. They're not grateful for what they've got. And that is not a very happy state of mind to be in. And I've often wondered, because those people are now getting to their 60s and 70s, these are the people that have a slightly skewed view on life, that I've never achieved what I was told I was going to get when I was a child. Aren't we supposed to be on the moon by now? And it's just led to this, especially with COVID, this immense sense of disquiet and unhappiness with themselves.
Yeah, it's a great shame, isn't it? It's a great shame. And when you think if that was sort of the reaction that was generated from the colour supplements in newspapers, then that status envy is the same as what you get is now magnified 1,000-fold through social media, isn't it? And Facebook envy, where you get all of these wonderful pictures being put up of people that out on holiday sipping their pina coladas on the white sands with the sea lapping at their feet, and you're sat there, or like I am, sat in the middle of a bin where I'm sat, going, that's not very good, is it? Why aren't I out there? Surely I deserve that.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I early, when Facebook started to really kicking in, about 20 years ago now, wasn't it? There was a time where I observed a woman who I knew very well. We saw this woman, my wife and I, almost every day. And she kept putting up on Facebook that she was having this wonderful lifestyle. And I thought, no, you're not. You're not doing any of that. People are so slightly annoyed with their true life. They live a life of fantasy, often on Facebook. And you think the psychology of that and what it must do to you.
Well, surely you must end up with a flipping life where you're totally depressed and disappointed about everything. If that's the way that if that's where your focus is, if your focus is on all of that, what an unhappy place to be. It's got to be, isn't it?
Well, the world now exists. I've written down here the kind of entitlement things I'm noticing. So, for instance, and a lot of these are just through my everyday interactions with people where I work. So people barging into the shop when it's busy because they want to be served, not getting served, and standing there lurking with a sense of, really? And then the impatience with travel, having to wait in a lounge for a bus, how dare they? And then expecting refunds if something doesn't turn up that I've ordered through the post. It's the people's I bought from's problem, which it isn't. People not willing to pay prices. Oh, the money's gone. What do you mean? I paid less than this a year ago. Why am I have to pay more money now? Well, it's to do with inflation. Oh, I'm not going to do that. And I'm saying that all the time, unfortunately. Or either that, or I've just become aware of it recently. It's probably always been there, but I kind of blanked it out. I don't know the answer yet.
Well, I guess, as I say, if you live with this banner of entitlement wrapped all around you, then you're always going to feel vulnerable to everything, aren't you? You're gonna feel vulnerable to anything that goes on, any expectation made of you. It's going to make you feel, oh no, that shouldn't be happening to me, you know. And if your expectations then aren't met, you're going to be dissatisfied with stuff. You're going to be annoyed with it. You're going to feel like somebody's ripping you off. Oh, they had me over. They cheated me. I'm a bit bad actually, because if I sit in a cafe or something, and if I'm on my own and I'm reading a book or something like that, I will often zone out from reading the book, and I'll sort of earwig on the conversations that were going on. And I can guarantee you that most of the conversations are all about what so-and-so did and how they had no right to do that to me and how they shouldn't have treated me like that and how I'm never going to talk to them again and how I'm blah, 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 how I'm, all of that sort of crap, you know. And this is all about me. It's all about my sense of entitlement, my sense of expectation. It's all about everything that I deserve, everything that I want, everything that I need to have, and everything that somebody does that doesn't reinforce my self-entitlement expectation, well, they need to be struck. Strike him roughly, centurion. Strike him roughly. You know, it's just nonsense.
He has a friend, you know. He has a wife, you know.
He has a friend. Does he have a friend? Strike him roughly. But oh gosh,
it's increasingly so because social media has permitted us to see idiots who are self-entitled, not just our area. I mean, it's far and wide. And some of the channels, there's a lot of YouTube now videos about this, exposing other people who have become quite famous through either TikTok or YouTube, and they've started. It's a bit like the old times in the 70s and 80s when if you were a film star and you go into a restaurant and you hear them say, "Don't you know who I am?" Well, that's now been magnified 1,000-fold. But how do we counter it? What do we do in its presence?
Oh, mate, I mean, if you ever hear somebody say, "Don't you know who I am?" you turn to somebody else next to you and go, "Oh, mate, this guy's got a real problem. He doesn't know who he is, and he's expecting me to tell him." Flatten them, man. Flatten them. Yeah. You know, I think that a lot of this this is a question. Is this something that this sort of phenomena, is this something that is really just plaguing Western industrialized nations that are wealthy nations? Because it seems to me that, and I might not be right here, but it seems to me that it is the Western nations that have like the highest levels of depression and mental health and all of that, mental health problems. And you look at how we live in the West, all of the material stuff that we've got in the West, and you think if materialism is something that really does make you happy, then we should be the happiest people on the planet. But yet it seems that Western nations are some of the most miserable, the most unhappy, the most depressed, the most mentally unstable people anywhere. Or is this a global thing? Does it out in the wops in Africa? I mean, I always see African people, and I'm only talking of African people because I've been doing some work recently with somebody out that way, and they're just always smiling. And this is where I live, and it's like a shack in the middle of nowhere, and no running water, no toilet, and they've got big grins on their face. Oh, I've got this wonderful house, and I'm thinking, mate, my garage is better equipped than that, and you've got a bigger grin on your face than I'm ever going to have.
Because the less things you've got to worry about.
It's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah, if you strip away the stuff that you've got, you don't have to worry about as much stuff.
You sent me a couple of days ago, totally unrelated, but I've got it here. I'm going to read it out. Orwell, this is about 1984, he feared we would become a captive culture. But Aldous Huxley, he did Brave New World, feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy. Are they his words, by the way? And then you go on. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny, quote, fail to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. Huxley adds, in 1984, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they're controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us, but Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. And you look at the things that people love today.
Yeah, you're right. It's this love of pleasure, I think, is of comfort, of pleasure, of well-being, of feeling it's all about me. And I think that then gives us a key to what the antidote for this is, which is that life is not about you. Life is about you in so much as your service of others. How you can serve others, how you can benefit others' world. In fact, if you were to look at even the writings of Jesus, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. So the golden rule being, practice treating others as you would like to be treated yourself. And then that goes into, regardless of who they are, of what social status that they're in. And if you actually start to bring the focus away from you, and my wife tells me that I'm totally self-absorbed, but I don't agree with her, of course. I'm not totally self-absorbed. I'm mostly self-absorbed, not totally. And but if you can bring your focus away from you and everything about you and place it elsewhere, then I think that's a real healthy antidote to as a start point. It's not about my entitlement. What about their entitlement? And why don't I focus on them? Why don't I consider them?
I think the problem that we face is that we have generated generations now of solipsism, that people are only interested in themselves. So I've written down just a few words here, how I counter when I come across this sense of entitlement. And of course, I couldn't have done this 20 years ago. It's just through experience and thinking about it and my own journey that, one, recognise that it happens. Recognise that it often happens in ourselves if we're not, open to admitting it. Two, when you come across it and in yourself, be humble. Be grateful that these people are exhibiting this because they're living in a world that they feel that they do deserve better and that they should be given certain things. They may be wrong often and a bit too strident, but that's the beauty of mankind. We are a tapestry of various hues and textures. But, and I'm interested that you brought up Jesus, because again, although I'm not myself Christian, I'm very taken by Ecclesiastes 5:15. because it says, everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. So, in other words, what's that teaching us? It's be happy with the little that you really have. And rather than, and this is Stoicism now, ancient, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, or maybe Seneca, said, why are you always wanting to go off places, to this tropical beach in our case? Why are you always wanting to go off to some mountain and then film yourself as though you're living the life that we all want to live? The true place you should be, the happiest, is in your own head. Calm, quiet, thoughtful. And finally, and again I sent this to you, Proverbs 15:13. A joyful heart brightens one's face, but a troubled heart breaks the spirit. Be happy and serve others.
Yeah, you're right. I think those are great rules to live life by. I would obviously say, if you have a faith belief as well, so that you don't believe that you believe that what you are serving is far bigger than you ultimately, which is helpful, but the service of others over and above self. And the book of Ecclesiastes, what an amazing book that is, right? I love the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a great book. It's a book of, well, this is all crap, isn't it? And that's all crap, and that's going to go down the toilet. And I've, somebody says to me, what's one of your favourite books in the Bible? Oh, Ecclesiastes. And they're like, you what? Ecclesiastes? It's just all woe. And I'm like, no, it's so rich and profound in its understanding of the human psyche and the human condition, and ultimately what it's all about. It's a profound book. So no, Ecclesiastes, I'm well on board with that. Well on board with it. But yes, it's lots that can be done, mate. Golden rule: think for others above yourself. Look out for others above yourself, and treat people well. And cut people a bit of slack, for goodness sake. If you recognise that life isn't all about you, then you can cut people slack. Maybe they got out of bed the wrong way, having a bad day, ran over the cat, for being kicked the dog, whatever.
Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Indeed, indeed. And we all need a bit of that, don't we?
Yes. Hopefully someone's going to do that for me. Please. Anyway, I deserve better than this. I'm off.
Yeah, you do deserve better, and I'm telling you, you do. I don't even know what you're doing here. You deserve that much better.
Where's my medal?
Yeah. Where's me gong? All right, mate. Take care.
See ya. Take care.
Bye.